Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. When you think of George Washington, what comes to mind? The stoic face on the dollar bill? The general who couldn't tell a lie about a cherry tree? We all know the textbook version of America's first president, the revered founding father. But what if I told you the man behind the myth was far more complex, ambitious, and even a little bit rebellious than your history class ever let on? Today, we're pulling back the curtain to reveal the untold story of George Washington, the secrets they never taught you in school. Let's start with his youth. We often picture Washington as this natural-born leader destined for greatness. The reality? He was a man driven by a burning ambition to climb the social ladder. Unlike many other founders who came from established wealth, Washington was a bit of an outsider. He inherited his first piece of land at just 11 years old, but it wasn't enough. He desperately craved a commission in the prestigious British Army, a symbol of ultimate status. He wrote countless letters, networked relentlessly, and tried everything he could to get that recognition. But the British military elite largely looked down on him as a colonial amateur. This constant rejection fueled a fire in him, a deep-seated desire to prove his worth that would shape his entire life and, ultimately, the destiny of a nation. Now, let's talk about his role in kicking off a global conflict. You probably learned about the French and Indian War, but did you know a young, inexperienced, 22-year-old George Washington essentially started it? In 1754, he was sent on a mission to the Ohio Valley with a simple order: tell the French to leave British Sea, claimed territory. That things got messy. A skirmish broke out, and a French diplomat was killed under Washington's command. The French were outraged, calling it an assassination. This single, chaotic event, known as the Jumonville Affair, lit the fuse for the 7 years war or conflict that spanned continents. Imagine being 22 and accidentally starting a world war. It wasn't the clean, heroic start we imagine, but a chaotic, muddy, and morally ambiguous moment that thrust Washington onto the world stage. And here's a fact that might surprise you. George Washington was a master spy. During the Revolutionary War, he wasn't just a brilliant general on the battlefield. He was America's first spy master. He understood that winning the war required more than just soldiers, and cannons it required intelligence. He created and ran the Culper spy ring, an intricate network of secret agents operating in and around British-occupied New York City. They used code names, invisible ink, and complex dead-drop systems to pass along crucial information about British troop movements. One of their biggest successes was uncovering a British plan to ambush the newly arrived French fleet. Washington's spy network saved the Franco-American alliance and was instrumental in the final victory at Yorktown. He wasn't just a general, he was a revolutionary James Bond. Let's also dismantle the myth of Washington, the military genius. While he was a phenomenal leader, he actually lost more battles than he won. His early command was plagued with defeats, like the devastating loss at the Battle of Long Island. So, what made him so great? It was his incredible resilience. Any other general might have surrendered. But Washington's true genius wasn't in winning every fight. It was in his ability to hold the Continental Army together through sheer force of will. He kept morale up during the brutal winter at Valley Forge. He masterminded daring surprise attacks like the crossing of the Delaware, and he never, ever gave up. He understood that to win the war, he just had to keep the army in the field. His persistence was his ultimate weapon. After the war, Washington could have been a king. Many of his officers wanted to make him one. This is a pivotal moment often glossed over. The new nation was fragile, and the temptation for a powerful military leader to seize control was very real. But in a move that shocked the world, Washington voluntarily surrendered his command to Congress. He handed back his power. This act was almost unheard of at the time. King George III himself reportedly said that if Washington did this, he would be the greatest man in the world. By choosing to be a citizen rather than a monarch, Washington established the crucial precedent of military subordination to civilian rule, a cornerstone of American democracy that endures to this day. Now for a truly surprising venture. Washington the businessman. After the presidency, he didn't just retire to a quiet farm life. He became one of the nation's largest whiskey distillers. At its peak, His Mount Vernon distillery was a massive operation, producing over 11,000 gallons of rye whiskey in a single year, making it one of the most profitable parts of his estate. He was an innovator, using advanced techniques and experimenting with different recipes. So, the next time you see him on the dollar bill, remember that this revered statesman was also a savvy, large-scale spirits entrepreneur. It shows a practical, business-minded side of him that we rarely discuss. Finally, let us touch upon one of the most complex and difficult aspects of his legacy, his relationship with slavery. It's a paradox that the man who fought for liberty was also a lifelong slave owner. Over his lifetime, more than 300 enslaved people lived and worked at Mount Vernon. This is a part of his story that we cannot and should not ignore. However, it's also true that his views on slavery evolved. Throughout the Revolutionary War, fighting alongside free and enslaved black soldiers, his perspective began to shift. He grew increasingly uncomfortable with the institution. In his will, he did something remarkable for a man of his time and status. He decreed that all of the enslaved people he owned directly should be freed upon the death of his wife, Martha. He also provided for their education and care. While this act doesn't erase the injustice, it shows a man grappling with the profound contradiction of his life and attempting, in his own way, to make amends at the very end. So, the George Washington we see on monuments and in textbooks is just a silhouette of the real man. The true Washington was a fiery, ambitious youth, an accidental instigator of war, a cunning spy master, a resilient leader who learned from his defeats, and a man who wrestled with the great moral conflicts of his time. He was flawed, complex, and far more human than the marble statues suggest. Understanding his complete story doesn't diminish his greatness. It makes his achievements even more remarkable. He wasn't a demigod born to lead. He was a man who, through ambition, failure, and a profound sense of duty, forged himself into the leader a new nation desperately needed. What do you think is the most surprising fact about Washington? Let me know down in the comments. Thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive into history. If you enjoyed this video and want to uncover more hidden stories, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our next adventure. We'll see you in the next one.